Welcome, everybody. My name is Jeff St Laurent. This is the live Tuesday show. We got people tuning in live, so it's great to have you. Please make some comments if you are here live. Write some questions as well. I will field those at the end of the call for a chance for us to interact. If you're watching the recording of this, we have a lot more of these recordings available as well on my website, sellingcoaching.com, under the university. So go ahead and check that out. Also, another great resource right on my website on the homepage is the Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches. I bribe you there, if you will, with my dog, and it says, hey, grab the free gift and the dog is yours, but that's a great resource. It's an audio PDF and a PDF resource that goes along with it. So but definitely be sure to check that out. That's also going to put you on my email community, and this is going to give you an opportunity to stay connected with me, get my emails on a regular basis, so you get some great other education in there as well, some tips and strategies each and every week. But more importantly than that, even, believe it or not, is seeing how I stay connected with my audience. It's going to be important that you do the same, as you know, as I teach you how to transition to a full-time business. Addition to that, if you're not a member of my private Facebook group, you can go to sellingcoaching.com right at the home page, and actually any of the pages right at the very top. There's an invitation to that group there. Right now we're doing a great challenge called Make Some Noise, and that is all about helping you speak your message, doing Facebook live broadcasts, doing live video broadcasts using Facebook, and it's doing one at least once a week for 10 weeks. So it's building consistency, it's honing in your new message, and giving you exposure as well. So fantastic challenge right there. And then lastly, of course, I help coaches transition to a full-time business. So if you're in a position where you know you need some help with that, I'm available for one-on-one mentor coaching. Go to sellingcoaching.com, go to the Work With Me page, scroll to the bottom, fill out that form. I will follow up with you. We can create a relaxed conversation, and then we can go from there. Now, speaking of that, today's topic is how to accept payment at the end of a complimentary session. Now, when it comes to asking for the money and knowing all the logistics go around that, there's a lot of apprehension for people when that comes up. And I know, because when I started back in 2003, 2004, I was going through coaching school, and I started my full-time business in 2004 and was full on into it by 2005. And I remember those first several years, I got to that spot where, you know, I'm giving a complimentary session. Number one, the person really wasn't well qualified, meaning I didn't really have much of a screening process, if you will. It was anyone who just, I offered complimentary sessions at the end of events. I offered them on my website, etc. And I was just getting people with a heartbeat to complimentary sessions. Meaning they really weren't well qualified. Meaning I never really took the time to understand how interested they were in not only potentially hiring me as their coach, but how much they wanted what they wanted to go for, what was their biggest challenge in their life, and how bad do they want it. But more importantly, I didn't really even assess the timing of it, because quite frankly, I didn't know anything about that stuff till I really started understanding the art of selling. And that's why, obviously, as I help coaches transition to a full-time business, my business is selling coaching and relating everything to that sales process. And I hope to help you hone your sales skills, because at the end of the day, I hate to say it like this, but this is the reality of it, and you need to understand this. When you are a full-time entrepreneur, you are 100% commission salesperson, meaning I don't have a salary that I'm working with here. This is me in my office, and guess what? The only one paying me is me, and I've got to rely on my skills. And like sales or not, whether you like that word, you just have an association with it. It's something that you deserve to work on and get better at. And that's what part of this conversation today is how do we close, how do we accept payment at the end of the complimentary session, is we've got to get better at that selling skill set and mastering that art. And more importantly, so we have a comfortability with it. So I talk about that apprehension, that anxiety, that like, oh, you know, at the end of a call, and I say at the end of an unqualified call, especially where I used to be, where it'd be like, I've got to ask for the money. I've got to ask for the sale. And I remember it's just every single time I got to that spot, it was like, ugh. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to say it. And it was hit or miss with the result. Most of the time it was miss. And then really the most of the time it was I would get some form of an objection. I don't have the money. I need to think it over. I need to go talk to my spouse. I need to talk to my pet dog to help me decide. It was just a bunch of BS. But all I did was on the other end was, and see if this sounds familiar, they'd say, you know what, I need to think about it. And I'd be like, okay, so do you want to just get back to me then and we can go from there? And they were like, yeah, that'd be great. And guess what? I hung up the phone, and then what happened? They joined witness protection. They moved to Mars, and I never heard from them again. Bottom line is is we need to understand how to calmly, in a relaxed manner, approach the end of that call. And as I was talking about earlier, I talked about how when I had that apprehension back when I started off, before I started understanding the selling skill set, mainly it was due to not understanding it. But what happened was when I get to that spot, it wasn't, as I said, they weren't well qualified. I mean, I didn't take the time to screen them. And screening is, I don't even like to use that word, but it's taking the time to understand and assess, a qualified person, whether I'm going to offer them a complimentary session or not. So earlier when I said, hey, if I'm available for one-on-one mentor coaching, and what did I say I had you do? I said, go to my website, sellingcoaching.com. I said, go to the work weekly page, scroll to the bottom, and fill out that form. So whether you're in that position for that or not, I want you to check that out at some point. Even pause this right now if you're watching the recording, and go to that spot, or check this out after this live show is done. And scroll to the bottom, and I want you to look at the form that I have there. That's a huge piece of my, if you will, qualifying process. Meaning, if you look at the way I word the questions and what I'm requiring of what I'm asking of you, you have to think, who is actually going to fill that form out and submit it? And based on what I'm requiring in terms of name, last name, phone number, and I'm requiring responses, I'm saying, tell me what you're working through right now, and tell me specifically why you're considering hiring me as your mentor coach. Who's going to fill that out, right? It's someone who's not only serious about what they're going after, but they're also in a position where they're serious about potentially working with me, or at least they're curious enough to the point where they want to learn more about it, right? So that's a big piece of that qualifying process. If you notice, I'm not on there saying like, hey, fill this out and or get back to me and I'll give you a complimentary session. So I'm not just giving out complimentary sessions to anyone that wants them. Our complimentary sessions as a coach, myself as a mentor coach, those are valuable. I look at that as that's the first step. Here's how I view my complimentary session with somebody is I'm gifting them a session out of the package of sessions that they're hopefully going to invest in with me. I'm willing to give them one in advance for them to really get a good feel of the value of if they were to hire me. That's what it is. So I treat that like, in my mind, even though I haven't paid for it, I'm gifting it to them, but I treat that like as if it were I was paying for that. In other words, that's like coming out of my pocket, right, as an expense in a lot of ways. So I value that time. I value that session. So I want to make sure before I just give that away to anybody just because they said, sure, I'll take it, right, is I want to make sure that they deserve it, or said differently, I want to make sure that they qualify for it. So what I mean by that is I've got to make sure that they meet 3 criteria. First criteria is I want to make sure that they have a need. Now, most people have a need, right? They want to get better at something. In my case, mentor coaching, they want a full-time business, so they want to really take their business to the next level, whatever that means. So that's a need. So most people will have a need. But now, more importantly than the need and how bad they want that need is the timing of that need, right? We need to understand why now, why today. People buy when the timing is right. If something's broken in your house or it's kind of broken or it's getting by, like a TV or I don't know, an iron or whatever, and it's just like it's kind of working, it's like maybe you get away with it. But the day something happens where, whatever, it's a Super Bowl or it's a big game on, or your favorite show finale is coming on, and your TV breaks and it doesn't work, and you're like, what the heck, it's not turning on. Guess what? Now the timing's right, and guess what? You go out and you buy a TV. So that's what I mean is you probably have the need already, but when the timing is right, guess what? You move forward and do it. So that's another, it's a different example, but it's no different in terms of our life. Is typically the timing's right when things have been going on in someone's life. And I'll say it like this, things have gotten bad enough. And I hate to say that people buy our products and services, not necessarily mine as a mentor or coach, sometimes when they get frustrated enough, or some people, they don't want to get frustrated enough. But what I found when I was doing more life or business coaching in a more general sense, I found that people bought or hired me when things were bad enough. When they were at the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, or they were on ground zero, and the only way to go was up. They couldn't get any lower, so to speak. And because the pain's there, it's so great, and they're so sick and tired. That's typically what I would hear. It's just like, I'm sick and tired. I can't do this anymore. And that's telling me that the timing is right. And that's so important. We want to assess that, because what happens when they're in that spot, because this is going to be important for the close at the end of why they're going to buy, is when they're in that spot of need and the timing is now, the value on the other end of some type of solution, you and your coaching services, that's the solution that they're looking at. But the value of that is tremendous. And when it's tremendous value, what that means is essentially said differently, value is, I'd be willing to pay, people say, you said this before, oh my God, I'd pay anything if blah, 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 blah. All right, you've said that before. And yes, it's metaphorically speaking, I would pay, I'd give an arm and a leg to blah, 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 right, to fix this or solve this. That means like my arm, how valuable is an arm? And I'd give my arm and my leg, right? And in order to fix this, right? That means they're saying it's valuable. So we've got to get to that spot, because when you get to point of sale, and if you haven't assessed that, the value for them, meaning the timing, all of a sudden you get to sale, and then you say, great, you know what, so I offer 9 sessions for whatever thousands of dollars that you charge. And honestly, at that point, it doesn't matter. It could be $50, right? And $50 or $5,000 or whatever you're charging is going to be too much for someone where the value's not there. In other words, the timing's just not right. They want it bad enough. But what that's when you're going to start getting objections. See, you're going to start getting objections because, you know what, I need to think about it, or they're going to be pausing, they're going to be hesitating. Like, you know what, I need to talk it over, and they're going to say their finances are tight. Of course their finances are tight. Most people's finances are tight. Even if you've got plenty of money kicking around, or plenty of money saved, or plenty of credit, it doesn't matter what it is. No one spends money on stuff that they don't value. You just don't go buy stuff to buy stuff unless you're filling a void, like emotional eating, right? Maybe you're buying stuff to buy stuff. But in general, people just don't go out and spend a couple grand on a coach, especially just because they've got money kicking around, all right? So money is an irrelevant piece. It's all about that value piece. And so that's why we've got to assess that timing. So those 3 things in the qualification process that I'm assessing, we said the need, which is really the least important, because, well, if it's not there, obviously important, but they wouldn't be interacting with you. They wouldn't have come into your circle if there wasn't some form of a need, right? I help coaches transition to a full-time business. If someone joins my private Facebook group or signs up on my sellingcoaching.com website for my free resource on there, the ultimate startup guide for new coaches, right? Someone signs up for that, it's an automatic clue that there must be some need, right? A circus clown's not going to subscribe for my free offer and join my private Facebook group unless, number 1, it's a mistake, or number 2, unless they're thinking about and or looking at doing some type of form of coaching business, right? So that's a part of an initial qualification. But so that the need, but then the second of the 3 things is that timing piece. And I wanted to extrapolate to show you how important the timing is, because when the timing's there, what happens is that builds that value. So I really want to elaborate on that a little bit so you can really understand where that comes from, right? So if you're not taking the qualification screening process seriously, or how about this? You probably haven't thought of it as serious or not. You probably just haven't thought of it because you didn't understand it. And that's my goal here, is to help you understand that. So now that you understand how I qualify a little bit better, now we get to that 3rd piece of qualification. And that 3rd piece of qualification is, are they either considering right now hiring you as their coach, or would they be open to considering hiring you as their coach to see how you could help them through this if they were to do that, right? Those are the 2 things. Sometimes they'll come to you, like for instance, like I said, with my Work With Me page on sellingcoaching.com at the bottom, if they're filling that out, I ask them point blank, why are you considering hiring me? And so they'll answer that question. And if they say, well, I'm considering hiring you because I know they're already considering hiring me, right? So now I understand that. And when I have a qualifying call with them, I'll ask them. I say, well, why, what has you in a position where you're considering hiring me as your mentor coach right now, right? And I want to understand why. I want to understand their mindset and where they're at and how strong that need is, but more importantly, that timing, right? That's that piece. But if, let's say you're having just a conversation with someone, you're after a live event that you've done, speaking engagement, maybe online through email and or Facebook Messenger or some other social platform, chat space, etc. I don't know if that's a technical term, chat space, but whatever, you go with it, right? So you're having this back and forth virtual and or face-to-face conversation, and you find out the need, you find out the timing, but they haven't explicitly said that, hey, you know what, tell me more about your coaching, or tell me how much it costs, or tell me more about what you do. I'm considering working with you. Let's say that hasn't come up yet. then we want to understand before, even if we've qualified need and timing, we don't want to just say, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to offer you a complimentary session, because we got to find out if they, in that situation, if they would consider taking a closer look of how we could help them if they were to hire us as their coach. That's the language. Would you consider taking a closer look at how I could help you if you were to hire me as your mentor coach? I could say that over and over again off the top of my head. You deserve, you need in some ways to figure out that phrase, write that down, go back in the recording and write that down, if you're watching it live, go back to the recording, etc. But this is what I ingrain in my mentoring coaching clients, is to help them specifically through some of these conversations. So you need to understand that. So, because if they say no, would you be open to, or would you consider taking a closer look, or how I could help you, etc. Right? If they're going to say no to that, then why would I offer them a complimentary session? Right? So if they're closed off to that, remember, the point of offering a complimentary session is because they have a need and they want to do something about it, and they're considering using you for your help. And with the mindset that I have about I'm extending a free gift of saying, hey, I'm taking this from the paid package and I'm giving it to you ahead of time, because it's like you got to try and experience it. Coaching is an experiential service. So even like driving a car, are you going to buy a car without test driving it? Maybe if you've had a Volkswagen, I love Volkswagen, but but I still wouldn't, even though I've driven the cars pretty much my whole life, I wouldn't just go buy a brand new Volkswagen without test driving it, right? I want to make sure I like it and how it feels, and et cetera, et cetera. Especially with coaching, they're spending more than they ever would have thought waking up that day on something that they probably didn't even know about before they started listening, watching, or reading some of your information. So my point is they've got to experience that. So you if they're not going to consider, or they're not open to at least taking a closer look at how they could how you could help them if they were to hire you, then why would I give them that session? So if it comes to that spot, basically what I'd say is that sounds good. Let me know if you're more serious about this and you're open to that. What I would love to do is I would love to offer you a complimentary session. I would love to offer you and extend our complimentary session so you can get a better feel of how I could help you. And I would say that in there. And if that sounds of interest to you, I'd be happy to offer that to you. In the meantime, I'm curious, what are you doing to solve X, right? Solve your challenge, solve your problem. What are you doing about that? What are you looking into at this point, right? So we've got to create those approaches, right? And that's all the process that leads up to the end here in terms of finding out how qualified someone is or not. So now we get to that spot where if you're doing this legwork, whatever, this is the work. This is the work we do. These are the conversations. Like I've got a group, livesalesconversations.com, and it was where I help coaches convert their leads into paying clients. That's the whole focus of that. And this is the whole work in our business. Once we set things up in our business, our email list, our free resource, let's say a website, or at least a web presence, social media presence, coming up with our marketing model of how we're going to get out there, functioning email list, staying in touch with those people, doing live weekly events like this. Once we get that baseline structure, that's what I do with my mentoring clients, is I start them, take them from scratch and set all that up for them, all the details specifically for them. Once we do that, the whole name of the game is qualifying, is creating these conversations that I say, like those live sales conversations, in order to, number one, first and foremost, is connect with people, develop relationships. I'm not out there, when people join my private Facebook group, as an example, I'll reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed you joined my private Facebook group. Great having you. I'm curious, how'd you find out about me and what was your motivation for joining? I'm not like sitting there going, oh my God, I hope they're going to hire me as a client. Like, of course I would love that if it's there. But my first and foremost my first and foremost intention is to connect with them, develop a relationship. Well, who is this person? Where are you? What are you doing? Why are you looking at doing this crazy thing called entrepreneurship and starting a coaching business? So I want to start to understand that and connect with them a little bit. And yes, if I find out the needs there, the timing's there, and maybe if they ask, or maybe if it's really strong, maybe I might make an approach and ask if they'd ever consider, hiring me or taking a closer look at that. But either way, I want to connect with those people. But this is that daily work. So now let's fast forward. So now, yes, at that point, offer someone a complimentary session and see where they're at, right? And so now you get them to the complimentary session and you get them there and you got them there and now they're qualified and you're both there on the same page, because now I'm there And I'm there because I know that you're looking to figure out X, that's your challenge, and the timing couldn't be better. And then you're there because you're evaluating what I have to offer to see if it's something that you want to take part in or not, or invest in or not. It's a very simple premise. And that's where I start off and I say, great, I know, obviously today I want to help you. I want to start moving you forward, gaining some clarity, blah, blah, blah. I want to leave you with some actions, not only so that, we can you start feeling good about your direction, et cetera, but I also want to give you a really good feel for how we can work together if you were to hire me. And if at the end you feel that there's tremendous value in working with me and hire me as your coach, we can go over all the details, take care of the payment, and get you in the schedule. So we set it all up perfectly. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take them to the end, and that's where we got to make sure there's some things that we need to know. We need to know some simple things. First off, we need to know our packages. We need to know how much we charge, and we need to know I offer 9 sessions for this much money, or whatever it is that you offer. So with that being said, if you don't know those things, because and then if you don't know, once they say yes, if you don't know how you're going to accept payment, and then after you take payment, how you're going to start the schedule sessions, schedule them, etc., then you're going to be less likely to feel comfortable asking. When you get to that spot at the end and you're like, okay, there's a point where it's like go time. You've got to ask, unless they basically say at the end of the call and you ask a question like, so how was today? Or, at this point, do you see value in hiring me as your coach? Other than hearing all the details and how it all works, are you ready to hire me as your coach? If you ask a question like that and they say, you know what, thanks so much, but no, I don't want to do this. Or for whatever reason, I appreciate your time, but you know what, I don't want to do this. And literally, I've given hundreds of complimentary sessions over the years. And I can look at you right in the virtual face and say, I've never had someone point blank said no to me at that phase of the game. In other words, people are afraid to say no. And so we've got to get to that point. Before we go over our pricing and stuff like that, we've got to be able to have the gumption to be able to ask that closing question. And that's a close-ended, at this point, other than hearing the details, are you ready to hire me, or do you see value in hiring me as your coach and ready to move forward? It's a yes or a no. They've got to decide. Our job as a coach is from a sales perspective, and that's really what our job is as a coach, is you spend a lot of time understanding the coaching skill sets to become a great coach. Awesome. Yes, hone those, absolutely, because once you've got a client, we've got to kick ass and be a great coach, obviously. But prior to that, we've got to learn the comfortability with this, as I'm saying. So we've got to be able to ask those close-ended questions, and you've got to be comfortable with whatever the answer is. And so no, you rarely get. You'll rarely, if ever, like I said, I've never gotten a flat no. Typically what you'll get is some form of an objection or a hesitation. And when you dive into it a little bit deeper, what you'll typically find is you either didn't qualify them well enough, or, especially with objections, there's some questions that they still might have that are holding them back. They don't quite see. And that's why I say, other than hearing of the details, at this point, do you see value in hiring me as your coach? Because, yeah, they need to hear the details. They need to hear how much the cost is, et cetera. But those are actually minuscule details, and I found really don't matter unless you're pricing stupid, right? But at the end of the day, those things don't matter if they really see value and they want to move forward. Even if it's more than they thought, had expected, or hoped, they'll find a way to pay you if you offer some flexibility in terms of payment structure and want to move forward. So that's not the issue. So if you're getting objections, if you're getting hesitations to that point, it's either come down to the qualification process, or they might be missing something, or guess what? They might be scared. As much as they say they want to go after it and they say the timing's right and they're sick and tired, and yes, they're considering hiring you, and yes, they want to work with you, and they had this great, fantastic 45-minute experience in this complimentary session, guess what? They're scared out of their wits, because guess what? By hiring you and giving you payment for this means that they're actually committing. They're committing externally into the world, at least through you, that they're actually going to do something about that. And that's hard. That's scary. So at this point, if you're sensing hesitation, just shift into coaching mode. Don't think, oh, I'm a salesperson. Who cares what a salesperson is? A salesperson is actually a great coach because they understand what someone needs. And when someone needs something, a great salesperson, all they do is basically, I understand my products and your services, and based on what you're saying you need and want, I'm going to recommend something based on what you're needing or wanting. And if there's some hesitations around it, well, let's talk about it. What do you feel? What's going on? What's going through your mind? Tell me what you're thinking. We deserve to understand what they're thinking, not just at this point in the sales process, if you will, but from point blank day number one in that initial conversation. We need to understand what they're thinking as that relationship begins to progress. So as that relationship begins to progress, now we get to that point, we ask for that sale. They say no, they say hesitations. We've got to not pry, we've got to understand, we've got to open up conversation. Tell me what you're thinking. Because guess what, like I said earlier in this live show, is that, you know, if you just say, okay, well, you know what, I'll let you think about it, and then, no, they're joining witness protection, they're going to be gone forever. You're never going to talk to that person again. Even if it's your mom or your dad or your brother or sister, it's like you're going to lose a family member. They're going to be gone. I'm joking, but you get the picture. So it's important that you take the time to understand what's going on there. Those are some of the more detailed things that I teach with my mentoring clients in that live sales conversations group, as I work them through some of those details. But we've got to understand the dynamic of that conversation. But then, of course, now fast forwarding, now if they say yes, a lot of people are afraid of the yes because they don't know the details. And now what do we say at the end? You know, it's like, great, so here's how it works. And we've got to talk them through the finish of that process. And I offer 9 sessions, and here's how it works, and here's what I offer, and here's how long it takes. We want to quantify that stuff. And I help you work through some of your script as my client, and some of those things that I offer there is I help you kind of work through that script at the end so you feel good about yourself. But we've got to get to that point at the end where we can work through that and then give them our price. And then we've got to be able to accept payment then and there. And that's why I want to wrap this up today, is we've got to accept payment right then and there at the end of the call. We can't say, okay, great. And they're going to be like, you know what? I want to hire you. And you're like, yeah, I'm excited. And then, okay, great. So I'm going to use PayPal because, you know what? I'm going to use PayPal because, you know what? I don't want to pay for a credit card service, or I'm going to use, let's say, a Stripe or something like that. And I'm going to send you an invoice because it's free, right? And there's these free services. And what I need you to do is I need you to have a virtual terminal where you can accept a credit card payment over the phone, because guess what? As soon as they hang up, you say, you know what? I'm going to send you an invoice. I'm going to send you an invoice. So I want you to go check out. That's hard for people, number one, because how easy is it to buy nowadays? You want to get a song, you whip out your phone, you go to iTunes, you type it in, you press a button, and it charges your card that you have on file, and you have the song, and you're listening to it right then and there. You can do it at a stoplight. You go up to a gas station, and you go up to a supermarket, and you wave your phone in front of this machine, and bing, you paid for it. You know, you go to Amazon.com, and you click a button, and the next day, a freaking package shows up at your door. How easy is it to buy? And so you might think I'm ridiculous when I say you have to send them a link, and then they have to find the email, and they have to click the link, and they have to go to the checkout, and they have to fill in their name and their address, and they got to whip out their purse or go get their credit card wherever they keep it, and a pile of other credit cards, and then they got to type in the information. And it's like, yeah, these are third world problems, right? Or first world, whatever it is, first world problems. It's like the thing is it's too much for them. And then you're on the other end going, okay, I got a new client, but did I? Because I'm waiting for their, them to take care of the payment, and it's not going through. And then what do? Do you be a pest and you email them and you call them back and say, hey, I noticed you haven't, sent your payment yet. Could you do that? Blah, blah, blah. So it just puts you in a really awkward position. So you need to take credit card payment over the phone, and you need to set that up. And yes, there's a monthly fee for some credit card services. I recommend something called Authorize.net. I'm actually going to post that right now I just pasted that into the comments if you're watching live. If you're watching the recording to this, I have that down below in the topics. So I'll have the link to Authorize.net, so it tells you exactly what you could do to set up. And it's $25 a month, but if you contact the guy that I have in there, he'll drop you to $15 a month. But yeah, that's $15 a month. And then yes, you pay a percentage of every transaction. But the advantage of doing something like that is you could do virtual terminal, meaning you could take credit cards over the phone. So in other words, at the end of the session, a complimentary session, and you're ready to hire me, I'll be like, great, so here's what it costs. Here's how it all works. Here's what it costs. And I say, great, can you pay that in full? I prefer to take it in full. And they say, yes. Guess what? What's your billing address? What's your credit card information? I take that down. I process the card. Guess what? The money's in my bank account. It's done. It's a done deal. They've hired me, right? But instead of waiting for a link that they may or may not do. And I found I've lost more business by letting people go and clicking a link than than the fees I've paid from processing credit cards. I will guarantee you, you will lose sales if you do it that way. That's why I unequivocally, without reserve, recommend you need a virtual terminal, and I also prefer to have something called recurring payments. Authorize.net, the thing that I pasted in there, or the things that I have down below with the link, does all that stuff. And that allows you to break the payments up. So if someone can't pay in full for whatever reason, I'm willing to break the payments up. Can you do that in 2 or 3 payments? Which works best for you? You need more than that? What about 5 or 6? And you know, maybe I'd be willing to go lower than that in some cases, but otherwise, ideally, you take a payment in full. But if you need to, I don't want that to be the deal breaker. I'm fine breaking up some payments. And what I do is I set that up automatically on their credit card. Right then and there, I take a payment now, and then it's set to go out automatically every whatever, you know, it's every month, it's every 2 weeks, it's whatever frequency that you agree upon. But that's how you utilize that. And I need you to do that because now you've got payment, you've got a client, and you can feel good about it, right? And so yes, there are other services out there. It's not like you have to use that, but I need you to make sure that you get a virtual terminal. There's things like, I've looked into this extensively, obviously, and is obviously the reason why I recommend Authorize.net. And one of the main reasons some people say, like, there's things like Stripe as an example that has a virtual terminal, and there's not a monthly, let's say, $15 fee, right? But what happens there is you're paying 3.5% on every transaction, right? In the beginning, maybe it makes sense. So that might be a great place to start. You get up and running today, you take a payment, you're going to pay 3.5% on that transaction. But like I said, it's well worth it, because if you didn't take payment there, you have a chance of losing the sale, right? However, the reason I recommend Authorize.net and just getting that set up now is, yeah, you're paying the $15 a month, but you're going to pay, like right now, I pay 2.1% per transaction. That's a big difference than 3.5%. So if you imagine what is that, 1.4% different. So you're paying 1.4% different. Is only going to be a matter of, once you're consistently charging, I think at that point it's like about $1,500 a month. If you're averaging about $1,500 a month, you know, you're going to be starting to pay more than that $15 in a service fee towards the extra percentage, if that makes sense. And with a Stripe, I don't even think you have virtual terminal at that point, but either way, you're paying a higher percentage. So you decide where you need it and what makes sense for you to start off. I'm trying to give you a few different resources, what I recommend and what else is out there. But even like a PayPal Pro, for instance, to get the virtual terminal is $30 a month. And then on top of that, you got to pay per month to get the recurring payments. So either way, I need you to have that set up so you're able to take payment at the end. And when you do it the way I described, what happens is now you're confident because you know how it works. You know what you're going to say. You've got a qualified prospect, if you will. And then you can create a great relationship. And at the end, you can actually walk away from there feeling good about yourself, because guess what? When they do say yes and they pay you, it's paid now and it's done. You've scheduled the first session, and you can hang up the phone and you can be excited because you've got a client. And last thing I'll say is you don't have a client until the money is in your bank account. That is a golden rule of our business and business in general. And when that happens, now you can celebrate, now you can have a client, now you can feel good about yourself because now you're doing this.